Hello, parents, and welcome to the Nurturing Parent Podcast. I just want to say I hope all you lovely mothers had an amazing Mother's Day. I hope you had the Mother's Day that you wanted, that you deserved, and that you truly, truly got to enjoy yourself that day. And now let's get back to our favorite topic, our kids. Especially those strong-willed ones. And today that's what we are diving into. How do you know if you have a strong-willed kid? How can you differentiate if they're strong-willed or if they're just stubborn? And we will look at the positive sides of having a strong-willed kid. You're probably like, what? There's positives to this? This is so difficult. There's no positives. But let me tell you, there is. And Amma will get into all of that in this episode. So without further ado, let's dive into it.
Hey, Mama. Welcome to the Nurturing Parent Podcast. Do you want to end the constant battles for bath time? Do you find yourself emotionally exhausted at the end of the day? Do you wake up with big hopes for a smooth day of fun with your little ones, only to face an early morning meltdown because you peeled their banana the wrong way?
Silly you.
Silly you.
Hey, I'm Serena. I'm a mama of two little ones, and as a new mama, I constantly questioned myself. I wanted to make sure I was raising respectful kids while also building a strong bond with them. But I discovered that I had to unlearn my ideas that punishment was the way. With Lisa's encouragement, I've been practicing a respectful and gentle parenting approach, which is strengthening our bond as a family.
And hi, I'm Lisa. Amma means grandmother in Icelandic. I am a mama and an amma. And I have over 40 years of experience in childcare and parent coaching. And I am so excited to share the knowledge I've gained over these years with you.
Together in this podcast, each week we will explore some easy to implement skills you can add to your parenting tool belt to help you create a happy, thriving family.
Hello, nurturing parent. Thank you for being here with us again today. All right, we are going to look at this topic of the quote unquote strong-willed child. This term I hear quite a bit, and I'm always really curious when I have the opportunity to ask a parent, tell me more. And sometimes people use words like they're just so stubborn, or they're just a difficult child, or more recently, a sort of nicer term is a very spirited child, right? So I wanted to look at what is it? What is it not? And how can we best deal if we feel like we have one of these children that is strong-willed, quote unquote.
Right. Like where's the fine line between strong-willed and
running the show? Entitled. We're actually doing a little mini series again because this week is the strong-willed child, and next week we look at spoiled children. And they kind of go together in a way because how we parent may create one or both of these kinds of scenarios with our child. So we'll look at it more deeply. But what I wanted to say is, just before we get into it, sometimes there's a gender difference here. So if we have a boy who knows his own mind and he knows what he wants, boys are often, and this is a generalization, but in our society, it is also often true that boys are seen as leaders, boys who have strong ideas about what they want and how they're going to get it. They're leaders. Girls who have those same ways of being are often thought of as bossy. And that's a negative, whereas the leader is a positive. So I just wanted to put that in there so that you can look at that if you have a child and depending on their gender, how they are treated either by you, the parents, or by society in general, right? Very interesting to look at that.
It is very interesting. And when you mentioned it, it actually even made me start thinking about how, as young ladies, like just our body language and the way that we're told that our body has to be, like it just that sparked a thought
Mm,
in me too. So.
yes, absolutely. I was a little girl who was called bossy. And in fact, I do think I have strong leadership skills, but it was a very negative for me being bossy. I felt terrible about it. And as an adult, being that leader, people look to me for different things. And I'm not trying to toot my own horn. I'm just saying, like, we just need to be careful how we treat our little girls and how we treat our little boys. But, you know, mm, just keep that one in mind. um, and so I just want to say that having, and I'm going to call it a strong willed child, even for me, although for me that comes in quotation marks, and you'll see why as this episode unfolds. But for me, being strong willed is not a bad thing. No, really. I could just hear our toddler parents going, oh, okay, Emma, what are you talking about? But it depends on what we mean by the strong-willed child and how we learn to guide them. Um,
It might not be a bad thing. What it probably is inconvenient to us.
that's a good word. It can be challenging.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially in those toddler years where your child now knows that they can, make a difference in their world,
Yeah.
right? And that's when it starts. And we all have those strong-willed moments with our children during those toddler years. They're also called tantrums or meltdowns or whatever, right? But but we're really looking at more that child who's like that kind of constantly. And yes, I will give you inconvenient and also really challenging. So I don't want to diminish it, but I do want to look a little deeper at what might be going on here and how to best be with those children and with all children when they get into that putting their foot down and no, I'm not going to do it that way. I'm going to do it my way. Um, if you're strong willed, you know what you want and you know what you don't want. If you're strong willed, you are able to be deliberate and to stay on course. As a society, we give great accolades to people who persist, often against great odds and adversities, and they succeed. So we are looking at the Nobel Prize winners, those writers who keep on going and then they win that biggest prize, right? We're looking at Olympians, breakthrough scientists, anyone who has earned a doctorate degree by blood, sweat, and tears. These people have our accolades and our admiration. And the one thing that all of them have in common is persistence, perseverance, and determination. They have been strong willed against all odds. so, so just keeping that in mind, if you do have that strong willed child, if we can guide them in such a way that supports their need for that independence, that self control, that self empowerment, we can raise incredible humans, right? Um, so, as I said, it's not a quote unquote bad thing. in and of itself to have a strong-willed child. And these children, like all children, will need our guidance, our boundaries, our compassionate understanding, and our love to grow into the best version of themselves. How do we do that? So here's your child, you're in the shop, they want that thing. They're going to get that thing because they're going to keep demanding it and saying what they want. And you could say something like, I appreciate how strongly you're persisting. And the answer is still no. So you give them that compassionate listening. I get you want this really badly. I understand you want to watch the end of this movie before bed. And the answer is still no.
Versus, I already said no, you're not getting it. Stop asking me. Stop crying. You're not going to get it. No, stop asking.
Exactly. Thank you. So then the child says, yes, I want it. And I'm not going to give this up because now you are my adversary. We are on opposing teams, right? I want you to find a way to find that yes together, to be on the team together, to invite a cooperative approach and to find a win-win somehow. And I know you're not going to be able to do this all the time, especially if that strong-willed child is constantly coming at you. But I will give you a few more pieces throughout this episode that might help ease that off. But how do we find that cooperative approach? How do we find that win-win? So I hear how much you really want that big, huge, expensive thing right now. And the answer is still no. And let's put it on your birthday wish list or the Christmas wish list, whatever coming next, right? But that's so long away. I know feels like such a long time until your birthday comes. And I get that you're disappointed. And it's okay to be disappointed sometimes. And I'm sorry that you're mad about that. You just keep listening with that compassion. You keep acknowledging what they're feeling. And I'm not saying it's going to go all smooth, but they're going to start feeling like you get them, like you understand how important this is for them. And having strong limits, firm limits, creates safety for your child. And children with their strong will and their stubbornness and their persistence, they need those boundaries. Sometimes that persistence is a cry for boundaries. Sometimes it's a reaction against too many boundaries or too much control. So you need to take that step back and you need to be that observer again. You need to be Sherlock Holmes in your child's life. You need to figure out, what does my child need? What are they calling out for?
And I love how you said that sometimes that might look like that might be their cry for boundaries because I've seen that a lot of times. And
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes it might be hard for the moms to take a step back and see that it might be a loved one that sees it before they
Mm-hmm.
do, that might be trying to tell them or doesn't know exactly that it's boundaries that's missing. But I I, I do think that sometimes I see it a lot. I think especially since it's like I'm studying this right now, doing this podcast here and having
Mm-hmm.
my kids, but I really have stepped into that observer role and that's something big I see is that cry out for boundaries, which is
Mm-hmm.
something that we don't we wouldn't expect that our kids can even do that or know that they need it. But yeah, that's a big lesson that I've learned here at the nurturing
Mm-hmm.
parent. Yeah.
And I love that you pointed that out. You, the parent, may not be able to see that it is a call for more boundaries. Because if you are a parent who tends to just give in because it feels easier in the moment, I get it. I get it. It's hard to say no. Oh my gosh, you guys, I got to tell one on myself. My daughter is, I don't know, 10 years old, 11 years old. We're in a mall. She's like, Mama, can we please go into the pet store? And I'm like, no, honey, I don't think we want to go to a pet store. Mama, please, can we go into a pet store? Look, they have bunnies, Mama. Look, they have bunnies. Mama, please. And I don't know, we'd probably been shopping for a while. I was already tired. We should have kept walking, but we went into the pet store and I said, okay, well, listen, we are not getting a bunny. So, you guys, we came out of that pet store with two bunnies.
Oh my gosh.
Two bunny rabbits that came home and lived with us. So I am telling one on myself, I was not always good at maintaining my boundaries. But boy, oh boy, can I tell you from experience that holding strong boundaries is actually going to be your friend.
Yeah, yeah.
I had
And
other places where I think I had better boundaries, but in that moment, I failed. I failed the boundaries test.
boundaries, I feel like, are kind of like going to the gym. Like it sucks going there and forcing yourself to get there.
Mm.
But once you can stay consistent with it and hold out, you really see the payoff.
Very good analogy. Very good. And I also want to say on that note, when you start putting the boundaries in where you haven't been strong or firm in your boundaries and your limits, their behavior may and probably will initially escalate. It will get worse. You'll be like, okay, it's not working. But I'm here to tell you, stay with it. I get how strongly you want this. I hear you persisting. And the answer is still no. Do you want me to hold your hand while we walk away from this? Do you want me to pick you up and put you in the shopping cart? Do you want to race me to the door? Whatever feels safe, you know, but find a way to get out of there together.
Mm-hmm. Change the mood, not the mind.
Change the mood, not the mind. Oh
Bring
my gosh. Imagine if we could fill up the entire car with all those things, like 10 million of those things, right? And just try to shift and shift the mood, get out of there, right?
right. And that bad behavior that might follow the consistent
Quote,
boundaries,
quote unquote
or
bad.
sorry, right. That's the soreness after you start working out.
Okay. Oh, good. I love the analogy. Some of these children who appear strong-willed, stubborn, difficult, those children, they may actually be children who are super sensitive. They may actually be children who have those bigger feelings or are quicker to express big feelings. So I just want you to keep remembering to keep doing your best to acknowledge the feelings while you are reinforcing the limits. It's important life lesson, and I don't want you to talk about it like, we don't always get what we want in life, and that's just the way life is. But you know that as an adult by now, you know that life is full of disappointments sometimes. We don't get what we want all the time. And instead of saying, can't always get what you want, and being that tough, like, I'm just teaching you a life lesson here. No, I don't want you to go there. But what I want you to do is, while we're walking away from this thing, I'm going to be knowing how disappointed you are. Or I'm going to be knowing how frustrated you are with me right now. And it's okay. I get that. And inside us, our adult brains, we know that feeling disappointment or feeling like we can't get what we want can build resilience in us. right, can build an inner strength that is a positive kind of a strength. If we give in, and we'll talk about this a lot more next week on the spoiled child episode, if we give in, it leads to that spoiling of our child. It leads to an entitlement that our child feels. It leads to a really vicious circle. So I encourage you, not to go there. I also want to say that power struggles may abound, and they likely do abound if you have a child who you think of as a strong-willed child. And I want to say that power struggles take two. You are the adult. You need to stop doing the dance. You just need to step off that dance floor. I get how much you want that thing. And the answer is still no. And do not engage.
Yep. Don't do the cha-cha-cha, go back and forth.
Stop doing the tango. Stop doing the cha-cha-cha. Exactly. So I just want to look at, I want to ask you a question, parent of strong-willed child. I want you to have a look, if you can, and this takes some objectivity again. Is your child actually strong-willed? Or, like we talked about earlier, are they desperately seeking those boundaries? Or are they desperately seeking some sense of control in their lives? Children need boundaries to know what is okay and what is acceptable kinds of behavior, and what is not okay and not acceptable. And they need to be allowed and given space to grow their independence. If we control every move in their day, if we are picking out their clothing by the past the age of 4, if we're helping them get dressed or telling them how to dress, if we are telling them how to play or how to interact with each other, if we are giving them a lot of adult directed time and very little open-ended free play time, they're going to feel like their whole lives are controlled. If we are rushing them from bed to food to car to daycare to school and off to extracurricular activities after school, one thing after another, if their whole day, their whole life is organized, they're going to feel no space to grow and to be the child that they need to be. And it won't be on a an intellectually aware aspect of their brains. They won't be able to know I'm feeling controlled. They will just be putting their foot down. They will just be being defiant. They will just be being that quote unquote difficult child, because we are wired. I say this a lot. We are wired as human beings to grow in our independence, to individuate, to separate from our parents. That's normal. It's natural. We need to encourage it. So just know that if you are controlling like their every minute of their day and all the things that happen, you will get rebellion. So anytime you can, any option that you can. And we had a recent episode. I don't know which number it was, but it came out on April 30th. And it was with a mama. And we talked about giving your child more time to make choices for themselves. At the age of 4, for sure, and maybe by the age of 2 for some of yours, they can start choosing what clothes they're going to wear in the morning. They can start getting themselves dressed when they're 2 or 3 or 4, some of the easier items to put on. Give them the opportunities to be independent. Give them the chores around the house to do with you or to do independently of you so that they're building that sense of self. Give them those opportunities to get outside and run and jump and play and climb without your interference, without any specific thing to do. Give them indoor, even those arts, that are just give them a bunch of paint or a bunch of crayons and some big paper and let them go for it. You know, open-ended time to just express themselves. Sometimes that's what children really, really need so that they don't feel their lives are being squashed or controlled by us.
Yeah. Just about control. That's big, and not to throw my mom under the bus. But I see her wanting to control so many parts of my little sister's life. She's about to turn 9, but the other day she was saying that my sister where her clothes are too big. And I'm like, that is the perfect problem to have. Right now, all these kids are wearing the tiniest clothes.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like I just felt like my mom wanted to control. And I'm not throwing anybody under the bus, but this is kind of like what my grandma probably did to my mom. My
Mm-hmm.
mom hated it. And now I see my mom doing it with my little sister just because I guess either it's a behavior she learned from her mom or it's how she grew up and it's what she thought a mom has to do for her child.
Yeah.
And so
Right.
I'm just seeing that a lot in my mom, and how it's hard for her to just let go of that control. And I have to say
Mm-hmm.
to her, Mom, that's her way to express her creativity, what she likes. That's how she's stepping into herself. Let her wear a funny vest with a like a short sleeve shirt that might look funny to you, but maybe that's fashion for her. And like, just because it looks silly to you, don't try to control it. I think as long as she's not
Yeah.
showing anything, then
Yeah. If she's wearing the tiny, tiny crop tops, that's when I would be a little more worried, honestly.
yeah.
Yes, that I love that. And yep.
Sorry, a point there that I really wanted to make was that she's my mom said if she dressed like that, people are going to laugh at her. People are going to make fun of her. And my mom doesn't know that. My mom like let her express herself, let her get that experience. Just don't try to control and protect her from everything. That's something that she needs
Mm,
to live. Let her live it.
yeah. And it is hard. I get that where your mama's coming from there is she's wanting to protect her girl. And mamas and dads, we can't protect them from all the stuff. And in fact, we're doing them a disfavor, a disservice if they if we're trying to protect them from everything. They need to build that resilience. They need to feel those disappointments. They need to have those uncomfortable moments so that they can figure out who they are and how they want to be with that. If she gets teased or made fun of for those outfits, maybe she's going to come home and talk to her mom, and maybe mama can say, everybody has different views of what they feel comfortable in. Everybody has different fashion sense. How do you feel about what you wore? That's the important thing. That could be a beautiful learning moment for both mom and daughter.
Yeah.
How do you feel? What do you want to do? I'll tell you, I was in grade 12. I went to California for the first time. I bought myself these really cool wraparound pants that were kind of like weird, big elephant pants, but they were wraparound, so they were open down the sides of the pants. Anyway, I thought they were super cool. They were the thing in California. I came home to British Columbia, wore them to school one day, and oh, I never wore those again to school. Because I was like, well, I'm just going to be the trendsetter here, but it didn't go that way. So I chose not to wear those again in school, but man, I still remember that day, and that's a few decades ago. So, and then there was another time when I was in elementary school. I was probably your sister's age. I was in, I think, grade 2 or 3, somewhere in there. And what happened was I didn't have enough clean laundry. And so I wore two different socks. Well, guess what happened? Kids started wearing two different socks. So I was a trendsetter that day. So it can go different ways. And I get that you want to protect your beautiful child. I get that. And just know that, you don't want to throw them out with the wolves, but you also just need, especially when they get bigger like that, you need to let them live their lives and come like the best we can hope for is they come home to you with their sadness or their upset or their frustration about how it went out in the world. And then you can talk through it together with that empathizing, compassionate listening that you're practicing. So, just to finish off, I really want to encourage you, if you have one of these strong-willed children, look at it. Is your child desperate for some boundaries? And like Mama Serena pointed out, you might not see it, but be open to that possibility. Is your child crying out for control? So look at those kinds of things. But before you do things to squash that determination in your child, remember those Nobel Prize winners, those Olympia winners, all the people that we aspire to as a society, and just think, oh wow, maybe my child is just a really powerful leader, and I need to nurture that without the entitlement piece, without creating that so listen in next week for a little more on that whole piece. But for now, here's a few positive things that can come from these strong-willed children. They have a really strong intrinsic motivation. They have a really strong sense of who they are and what they want and how they want to get it. That's intrinsically motivating them to stand up for themselves, to speak their mind, right? And that's a positive aspect. Being strong-willed and working with you, with your listening, with trying to get to that win-win place, that can build really strong negotiation skills. They can become really courageous people. They're very strong people. They can become very strong. They can be later in their life, in middle childhood, through their teens, through their young adult life, more resistant to peer pressure. I think that's an important piece to remember. If we squash that out of them and get them to be obedient to us because we're the parent and we said so kind of attitude, if we fight them on it all the time, no, you do it because I said so, all of that squashes that strength in them. And those children can become more compliant to peer pressure. And we know how peer pressure can go in later years. It can be not so pretty. And if you can grow into the parent who can listen empathetically, compassionately, you can actually raise an empathic, empathetic, compassionate leader for the future.
All amazing things that we, of course, want for our kids, right?
Yeah.
I love this.
So, if you have a strong-willed child and you've listened to this and you're like, wait a minute, Amma, and you want to have a conversation with me, send us an email. I'm willing to listen. I'm willing to learn from you if you don't think any of this is going to work for you. And if you put some of it into practice and you find a space in there that shifts things, let us know that too. That would be great. Thank you for listening and for being here with us. We love you.
Okay, so let's dive into my gems. My first gem is going to be that strong-willed kids, having that quality is a quality that highly successful people have. So with that being said, that is a quality that I think we want to cherish and support and nurture if we see that in our kids. So the first step is determining, is your child really strong-willed or are they just stubborn? But if they are, to really admire that about them and learn ways that we can support them to really set them up for success. Number 2 is that having a strong-willed kid, or you might think you have a strong-willed kid, but that strong-willed kid might really be crying out for boundaries, or they are crying out because they have too many boundaries. And so this could be the case. And it's important to take a step back and really be the observer. And, this might change from time to time. Sometimes I'm just super strict and I feel like I need to control everything. I just get in when I'm very stressed out, I feel like I need to control everything and I might have too many boundaries in place with my kids. Like, don't touch this, don't do that, don't. And sometimes it's just because I feel like I need to control. And then sometimes I'm exhausted, so there is a lack of boundaries, and I'll say, it's time to go up. Let's go up. It's time to go up. And I'm not moving. I'm not helping them get up. I'm not doing anything. I'm really just repeating myself and not holding my boundaries. So really what's best for me to do is just be quiet and not say anything if I'm not going to hold that boundary. And then number 3 is when Lisa said that a power struggle takes 2. So sometimes we really just need to just step off the dance floor and stop engaging. Like, I think of a robot, just disengage, and just step away. And that takes being an adult. And it's hard for us adults to do that sometimes. All right, so that was a great episode. Next week, we're going to have another great episode about spoiled brats. Have a nice week.
I want to sing with you. I want to dance with you. I want to laugh with you. Oh, how I love to be with you. I do. I do. Such a short time we've been together. Seems like a lifetime or two. Never knew I could love another.